Hi everyone, this is Mohammad Ali Raza. Today I'm going to present you about the application of security principles and how it's going to be effective for the remote workers in terms of cybersecurity because cybersecurity is basically a, the most important concern while we are providing a remote access to the workers, and it's pretty common in these days where we are running with COVID-19 issues. So let's get started. Uh, in the first slide, this is about the security failures. So what are the consequences of cybersecurity breach if we are under the attack and the security controls have been failed? Then what's going to be happened? The company reputation definitely is going to be down and damaged. They could be having the financial losses. They could be having a data theft or some critical information would be steal that would definitely hit their business. And sometime like the government agencies or any financial subsidiaries, they might have to pay the fines. So we shouldn't be having a security failures. Always have right security controls in place. Below security attacks, successful penetrations are always considered as a security failures. So if we are under the attack, that means we don't having a right security controls in place, or we are lacking some of the security aspects. And that's we are basically discussing a couple of security failures. So if, for example, if we are under the man in the middle attack, if someone in the middle is able to sniff the traffic, he is able to basically sniff the data over the wide or wireless network, or would be able to perform successfully the DNS or IP spoofing or some another kind of stuff which he could do in the middle. So that means the security has been failed, and the man who is sitting in the middle is successfully a break of the security control. And our due to this security failures, we could have like potential issues. The second one is the malware attack. If we are under the malware attack, any virus, worms, or any Trojan activities going on in the system, which is infecting our system and the files, that means security has been failed. Uh, then the data breach, definitely, if we are losing any sensitive or critical information, the data files have been stolen due to the data breach. That means our security has been failed. Next is uh, social engineering. So we always have to avoid the weak password or the default password, which could be easily compromised by using the social engineering techniques. And the next one is a denial of service attack. So uh, if the system or the network is under the denial of service attack, and any attacker was successfully able to launch the denial of service attack, uh, that means our security has been failed. So we always have some kind of preventive controls to basically protect and defend from these denial of service. And same thing with the ransomware to lock the system or the business digital assets and to encrypt. Basically, what the hacker does, he does encrypt the data or file or the system, and they're gonna ask for money or whatever we demand he can do. So these are some of the security different kind of security attacks and the different kind of vectors from which we always have to consider, and these could be the potential cause for the security failures. Next, some more items like phishing attack. So phishing attack, you guys are familiar if any unknown emails or the email which looks like legitimate. So what attacker does, they would like to steal the information by sending any emails or messages or calls by showing and it looks like the legitimate information. And we should be having a right control in place like email spam controllers. to identify and to detect these kind of phishing emails or phishing activities going on. And right security control is not enough. We also have to educate the end users, right? So they have to avoid keep using the kind of phishing attacks or phishing emails or any kind of phishing messaging. Next, device misconfiguration. If any misconfiguration has been happened in any device, or we are lacking any security hardening or security features configuration, so that could also be the potential threat, and that could also be become uh, 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 like a kind of vulnerability or misconfiguration. So attacker can use it, and he could exploit the network or system or services. Next one is the injection. Like an attacker can basically inject any particular code. Same thing could happen in the databases by using the SQL injection. He could remotely penetrate systems by injecting a particular commands and LDAP injection that would basically modify the systems and could perform any malicious code and activities in the system. So if that happened, definitely our security has been failed. So we always have to detect these kind of malicious and intended activities that need to be monitored, and we should be having a right control. So since we are providing the remote access to the remote users, so each and every activity is supposed to be monitored, and right security control should be in place. Next one is regarding the principle of the cyber security, like confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. These are the CIA tracks. So we are already familiar about that, like confidentiality. I'm not going to walk through the confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. We knows about that. I'm just giving you a quickly the security failures example. So in confidentiality, basically man in the middle attack, social engineering, phishing attack, network or system compromised by internal or external threats. These comes under the confidentiality. So if we are under the attack and our security has been failed, so that means we are loses the confidentiality, especially in these kind of attacks. Next one is integrity. We, in case of data breach, injection attacks, malware attacks, so if we are under the situation where we have been basically uh, under these kind of attack, that means we are losing the integrity, and that's going to be the security failure where we are losing the integrity. That should be the main principle of the cyber security, and we should be having integrity control. The last one is availability. Whenever definitely the authorized users or the system need to access the data, you should be securely access the data. And in the case of the attack where the security failure has been happened, like in the case of the denial of service attack or ransomware attack, we would not be able to access the data anymore. So that means that would become a showstopper where we wanna access the data. So these are the two terms, the two security failure examples which related to the availability. Now we need to discuss about the designs violations, the like security principles and their violations. So there are so many. I will try to quickly review all of these. Like the first one is the adherence to the coding standard. Software and the program should follow some of the coding guidelines and the developments, and it need to be keep updated the versions so to avoid any kind of weakness that's going to be basically create the vulnerabilities. Next one is execution, the unnecessary privileges. If any system, network, or the application at a privilege level that is much higher than the expected one, that would also cause the weakness in the system. The third one is the failing open. If somehow the product or the application encounters an error condition and a design required to fall back to a state with that is less secure than the another option that are available, that's going to be a security issue. So we have to always consider this. It's not falling back to the weak security options. The fourth one, unnecessary complexity in protection mechanism. So every time the resource, we also have any system application or system, we have to perform like the complexity should not be in place, and it should be very similar, like where not similar actually, it should be easier, and we shouldn't add any kind of additional complexity to protect the system, and it should be easily monitored and managed. Not using complete mediation, the network system application doesn't perform access checks on resources every time the resource is accessed by any entity. We should always recheck the systems, APIs, and the networks and inter-domain calls or communication. So if we are not validating those, that could be the security weakness and the design security violation of laws, which we always have to keep considering. Improper isolation, we have to basically isolate the functionality processes or resources that require different privileges, level, rights, or permission. So proper isolation should be in place. Last reliance on a single factor in a security decision. So we don't need to rely over the single factor authentication. We should be always having a multi-factor authentication, especially where the critical application services and the network or the system or tools need to be provided. So the multi-factor authentication should also be considered. Otherwise, the single factor authentication, that's basically the design principle violation. Next one is reliance on security through obscurity. The network or system application using a protection mechanism whose strength depends heavily on its obscurity. So the algorithms, like for example, the encryption algorithm should be the secure one instead of using the less secure algorithm. The last one is lack of administrator control over security. Sometimes basically we deploy the security and the products, but we don't enable and customize as needed. So we have to enable the security controls in well, like all of their services and features as per the requirement. Now I'm going to recommend some of the security basically design security design which has been recommended for the remote workers, and these are the major principles which we need to always follow while providing the remote access. First one is the VPN. We should always provide the secure VPN access to end user. That's going to basically provide end-to-end encryption. So data would be secure during the transit, and proper authentication and authorization and accounting and end user posture assistant should be placed before allowing them to get connected over the network. Next one, the group domain controller policy and the domain controller should be there. That's going to be used for identity management and to provide basically the remote workers security policies from the centralized location. And all of these listed items will be controlled from the centralized domain controller. The another was centralized storage solution should be in place. So all of the remote user data should be backup. Centralized company provided software center where from where he gonna like any remote user would be able to download the company authorized and the licensed softwares, and centralized antivirus solution. Each and every system should be running anti-malware and antivirus solution. Um, Password management tool, company should provide it the password management tool that would be helpful to keep different services password safely in Drive and in the encrypted format. So if somehow, let's suppose the laptop has been stolen or like data has been compromised, so all of the passwords should be securely managed, and in the encrypted format it should be safe. And there are some another like recommendation like they have to keep changing the password. The traffic should be passing via corporate proxy. Single sign-on should be placed. Multi-factor authentication should be placed. So these are some of the others listed items. And last but not least, I just want to walk through. This is also one of the important things: secure workplace communication on the business messaging tool. Like we need to use the industry secure and the proven tool like Skype, Business, Microsoft Teams, Slack, and there are some more in the market which gonna be used to have a secure communication among the team members, so they can share the file and they can communicate or collaborate more over these business tools. And the last one, identity and access management. All of the identity keys related to the either IT staff, operational staff, or the normal user should be managed and controlled, and it should be having required roles and permission should be properly managed. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoy the presentation and wish uh, uh, have a good day ahead. Thank you so much.